Hello. Let me begin by sending you my greetings for this first Progressive Forum in Greece and my best wishes for a productive discussion. I don't need to tell you that you're going through a very difficult time, and even though there appears to be a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel, it'll be some time before Greece attains its level of income that it reached back in 2009. I think it's now widely accepted that the strategy that was followed by the Troika was faulty. First, there was the economic misdiagnosis, which put excessive emphasis on fiscal consolidation and austerity. Then there was the mistake of thinking that structural reform, that is opening up the professions and relaxing labor laws, as desirable as that might be, in general could serve as a substitute for a growth strategy in an environment of depressed demand. But perhaps more seriously, there was also a political misdiagnosis. There was a failure to recognize that as long as the euro is a nascent economic and political union, that creditor nations must approach this crisis not as a morality play, some guys being good, some guys being bad, but as a problem of mismanaged interdependence. And this means that a lot of the responsibility for solving the problem also rests with them, not just the highly indebted countries. And of course, that means that they ought to have played a much bigger role in terms of increasing spending in their own countries and the surplus countries, especially in Germany, allowing the European Central Bank to have a higher inflation target, and much more timely debt reductions, including from the official sector. I think the result of those economic and political misdiagnoses has been that the external achievement in countries, the external balance in countries like Greece was achieved through a collapse of domestic demand and unbearably high levels of unemployment. I think if one good thing has come out of the crisis, it is that there is now much greater agreement on two issues. One is that an economic and monetary union also requires a fiscal and a minimal level of political union as well. So if you want to continue with the monetary union, you'd need to complete it with the fiscal and political dimensions as well. And secondly, that ultimately a workable economic union requires a certain amount of reduction in structural heterogeneity in institutional arrangements across countries, in labor markets, in social security arrangements, in fiscal arrangements, and so forth. That, of course, means a reduction in national diversity and national sovereignty. So I think there's a version of the German argument that has been right for the long run, which is that countries need to look a lot more like each other if they want to inhabit the same house. Of course, what that house ought to look like, whether it's a German-style house or a different design, is a political decision that is preferably going to be made in a democratic fashion, not just imposed by one nation on the others. So as I see it, the political debate of the future is going to be about the design of this house. And I think the obvious role for progressives here is to argue for a set of institutions that goes significantly beyond enforcing monetary, fiscal, and financial discipline, particularly on the weaker nations, and include institutions of solidarity, institutions of equity and inclusion, mechanisms for economic restructuring, industrial policy, and union-wide political and democratic deliberation. In other words, a thick union which is more democratic and inclusive, rather than a shallow one based on a neoliberal vision of the market and of the state. I'm sorry that I'm going to miss your deliberations, which no doubt will cover such issues, but look forward to hearing about the results.